Hi, thanks for watching. We're going to talk about England's tour of New Zealand in March, starting March 6th. It's a three-test series. I'm going to spend most of this video talking about the English. Part of the reason for that is because I'm sort of sick of talking about New Zealand. They've played. Well, I've talked about this will be my fifth time talking about them in the last 8 months. They went to the West Indies, then India, then Sri Lanka, then South Africa, and now this series, all since about May of last year, maybe even June, July last year. So consequently, I've talked a lot about them. I think there's not a lot to talk about, honestly, with New Zealand. So I've gone over the same stuff again and again. Just as a bit of a note, Daniel Vettori is still out. His career has to be in some question now. He's in a very old 33, even for a slow bowler, because he started when he was about 18. So he won't be playing. The New Zealanders generally look they're a terrible batting team, and when we saw that against South Africa, not only with a 45 but 9 for 62, I think it was in the second test as well. Obviously, it was without Ross Taylor and against very good opposition in their country, but this is a batting card that's really struggles to get to 300 at all, not only with regularity but at all. Taylor's back, which will help. Williamson still shows very modest but continuous development, big century in Sri Lanka. All that said, and we've talked about the positives with Bracewell and Southey, and that more or less continued, although Southey was out for the South Africa series. That more or less continued against South Africa. So there are some positives there. The batting tends to override everything they do. All that said, I sort of come here to praise New Zealand, not bury them to some degree. Both these teams have taken a lot of flack in the last sort of 12 months or so, and much of it undeserved. Thing about New Zealand, look, they're not a good team, sure, but they were without their best player for the last series against excellent opposition. I thought against the West Indies they probably performed slightly above expectations. I thought the West Indies would do a little bit better than they did. So marks there. Beat Sri Lanka. I mean, look, I expect Sri Lanka to absolutely cream them, and they beat them in a test match. That's a big deal. New Zealand now has won 2 road test matches in the last, 15 months, which is an excellent achievement, considering West Indies have won like one in the last 10 years or something against meaningful opposition. So I think people can get a bit carried away with this New Zealand a terrible thing. They're the eighth best team in the world, but again, their road record is a lot better than West Indies recently, who most people, including myself, have above them. They come back home now, and they've been on the road for 8 tests, which is always tough to do, especially with a young team. They come back home now to play England, and we'll talk about the English now. England too have been pretty vilified the whole last year. Essentially, it was all about England doom and gloom, and they lost some tests. Obviously, Pakistan lost 3 tests, lost another one in Sri Lanka, lost 2 against South Africa, and then India. So looking at a team that lost 7 test matches last year. But I think everyone got a bit carried away with this, and even when they won in India, it was also well they're sort of okay, but look, they lost to South Africa. I think everyone appreciates South Africa is a better team than England now. I don't think that was. I think before that series, it was probably a line ball call with South Africa marginally ahead. South Africa's been just demolishing teams since then and looking better and better. England has been solid, but not as good as South Africa, obviously. But there's no real shame in that. Even at home, losing 2-0 in 3 tests, of which the last 2 were very competitive, especially the second test, they're probably the best of. No massive shame there. Pakistan thing, okay, you got me, Pakistan, that was a bad result. But again, as I said at the time, against that Sri Lanka as well, they lost 3 tests by 75 odd runs, and that's their close matches. So the record is better than it seems, I think. Some numbers. Looking at England, I think this series will be a low-scoring series. I don't think I'm again, reinventing the wheel there. Good bowlers on both teams, and I do think that New Zealand's bowling attack is basically good. England's bowlers should absolutely have a field day here. These are conditions quite similar to what they have back in England, but even better bowling conditions. New Zealand is typically considered the best place to bowl fast in the world. Jimmy Anderson, 4 wickets a match at 27.85 since 2008. I don't think I've actually tabulated that in one of my England previews before. I've actually looked at his record since 2008. That's not extraordinary for wickets at 27.85, but it's very solid. And again, as I think I did mention in a preview I did some time ago, Anderson is the best bet in the world for getting you 4 wickets in terms of just a consistent performer. He hits that mark consistently. There was a period of about 13 innings or something where he got a wicket in every single innings he bowled in. And for an attack like England, that's very important because they rely on those 4 bowlers so much. Peterson behind it, Trott behind it is very, very little. And their attempts to try and add a fifth bowler to that have been pretty marginal. We'll look at that in a second. Anderson also does very well, as you would expect, against the New Zealanders. 5.4 wickets a match at 24.07. So a good record against New Zealand teams, and this is a particularly weak batting card. Jimmy Anderson will have a field day. It's a given. If he averages above 25, I'll be pretty astonished. Stuart Broad, and this is a really interesting thing with Stuart Broad, and it's something that I'm passionate about. They dropped Stuart Broad in India, and I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. My exaggerated, and I really thought it was absolutely ridiculous. Stuart Broad is one of the most exciting young cricketers in the world. He's 25, 26 years old. They've invested a lot in him for a long time to get him to this standard. To drop him after not taking a wicket in a couple of test matches is just ridiculously stupid. I talk about, to mates of mine, about people worshipping at the altar of Steve Finn, who's done very little at test level as much as everyone goes on about him. Stuart Broad he can bat, shown genuine seam movement, big LBW threat. Stupid decision. The good news is, I do appreciate, before I keep going, I do appreciate that part of it might have been a heel injury, but it better have been. Anyway, he'll play here. He'll play because it's just a stupid decision not to play Stuart Broad. But in addition, he'll play because of Tim Bresnan's abject performance in the last several test matches. In fact, we'll talk about that first. Tim Bresnan, since the Sri Lanka series, has absolutely fallen into a ditch. During the Sri Lanka series in April, 17.14 he averages with the bat, 2 ducks in 8 innings. Look, that's not good, but it's not terrible, even though Bresnan selected in part because of his abilities with the bat. 17 is a little bit of a lull, but honestly, Broad hasn't been batting that well either, so that's probably comparable numbers. But this is the amazing bit. He's with the ball. So again, since that Sri Lanka series in April, he's taken 2 wickets a match at 57.19. 57.19. I've sort of got a few cute numbers here. I think Tim Bresnan's career is over. I think it's a bit like Imran Tahir's performance against Australia. I don't think you're going to see this guy again for a long, long time. The performance is that bad. Tim Bresnan has not taken a wicket in his last 74 overs. He's bowled for 74 overs. So if you imagine a person bowling for 2.5 sessions and not taking a single wicket, that's Tim Bresnan. He has 2 wickets in his last, pardon me, I should qualify this. In the last 648.4 overs, so I told you this would be a bit of a cute stat. Last 648.4 overs, that's 3,892 deliveries that England have been bowling. Tim Bresnan has taken 2 wickets. 2 wickets in that time. That's 648 overs. That's 22 sessions, or over 7.5 days cricket. That's just with England bowling, not just Tim Bresnan bowling, to be fair, but with England bowling, taking 2 wickets. Amazing. So that's why Broad's going to play as much as anything else. There's no way they'll pick Bresnan here. They're just idiots if they do. So Stuart Broad's going to play. Look, even his last year was apparently so terrible. Still was a reasonable, presentable year in this era. 3.6 wickets a match at 31.7. He did go wicketless in 36 overs against India, and he didn't bowl well. But again, this guy's borderline star. You should pick him. In his previous 16 matches before the India series, 4.6 wickets a match at 25.3. This is not someone you should drop. It's ridiculous. So again, it's good that he'll play. Again, he also will have a field day against New Zealand. England's batting depth, which has been pretty spotty, was so heralded a year, 18 months ago by yours truly as much as anyone, has been spotty. This is a good chance for them to show some fight. Something about the England batting card, it has shown some frailty in the last year, and I think New Zealand actually will get some incisive work here. Look, as I say, I don't think they've had a bad 18 months all told, and they've unearthed some good young pace bowlers. I think when you consider there's going to be 3 tight, close, low-scoring test matches here in their own country, I think they have every chance to win a test match, and I'm going to be very optimistic and probably very ambitious and pick them to do just that. I think England will win 2-1. I think England will be quite happy just to get out of here 2-1. When they go back to England and they play New Zealand's next series against England, so it's England against New Zealand, I think they'll sweep those 2 tests probably big time by innings and so on. But I think this one, in New Zealand's home conditions, with Ross Taylor back, probably make a score, and I think there'll be tough, tight test matches, and I think they can eke out a victory, sure. Hopefully we see England's tail show a bit of resiliency here. It's been a while since England's tail's done something. Anyway, 2-1 England. Thanks, guys.